All right, welcome everybody. Today I'm excited to have AlKarim on our show today. AlKarim is a seasoned entrepreneur who enhances emotional quotient for business owners and professionals by working on their inner selves. He blends his business expertise in consulting, empathy, and coaching, and intuition from energy practices to help them design the life they desire. Wow, that's awesome. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So, tell us a little bit about yourself before we dive into the real questions here. What should
Sure. So I
what should
live
the
in
audience know
Oak.
about you?
Sure. Yeah. I live in Oakville, Ontario. I'm married with two wonderful boys. And it's been quite a journey. So I call myself an intrapreneur for a reason, because I was an entrepreneur for over 25 years. And a tragic event 5 years ago changed everything for me. And what I've realized at that point is that as entrepreneurs or professionals, we tend to be chasing the outside world to get our satisfaction, whether it's wealth,
100%.
whether it's inner peace, whether it's, just that recognition that we want, not recognizing that those are all band-aid solutions to what we're really looking for in life. And to be able to get what we want, we need to change from the inside. And to me, I had to go through a difficult lesson to be able to do that. And today I want to make sure that we have to go through the journey, but the journey doesn't have to be difficult. It's
Right,
like
right,
riding a bike. Do you want to ride a bike uphill with the wind in front of your face, or do you want to ride a bike downhill with the wind
right.
behind your back?
Right. And it just seems like, even my own world, you kind of need that slap in the face to wake up, I guess. And what you're saying is it doesn't have to be that way, that it can be proactive. It's just like we could be proactive with our health, whether that's we people that exercise or eat right.
Mhm.
It's being proactive rather than getting that slap in the face, whether it's a relationship and divorce or a
Yeah,
tragedy such as yourself, which whether you want to speak on or not, but
yeah.
really you kind of shifted because I don't this isn't something you've been practicing your whole life. So what was that shift to get you back into yourself and start this energy journey or energy work and healing journey?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So like you said, I think the slap comes to all of us. I think that's the universe's way of, sort of keeping us in our alignment, right? It's like, we all have kids,
Right.
and when a kid is sort of going stray, you would give them a sort of a warning. You're not going to give them a smack the first time or
Right.
ground them totally the first time. You sort of do that slowly. And as long as they're wearing in the right way, you don't go to that extreme. The
Right.
universe is the same way. So for me, I knew that there was a message that was coming to me. I just ignored it because I was egotistic. I was, I thought I knew it all, right? And we all do at point. We think we just have all the answers. And so it progressively, that message from the universe got to the point where 5 years ago, a fire destroyed the furniture business that I had totally, right? 25 years I built that business and grew it from like I moved from Edmonton, and it's a family business. So I can't say I started from scratch from everywhere, because we did have roots in Edmonton and Vancouver, but I started from Toronto in scratch, grew multifold in 5 years, like we were the market leaders. And then that misalignment came into play. There was a shift in family dynamics that happens with everybody. There is this common phrase that most family businesses don't last past 3 generations, because there is certain elements that come into play that destroy the family business. And we were no different.
Interesting.
So that alignment only came to me after I lost that fire. So when that happened, I got introduced to a mentor, Almas from Tanzania, and my parents knew her for the longest time, and they always said, talk to her, because I was also going through, what you sort of alluded to earlier, is that sometimes our misalignments will show up as health, and so I had a really severe case of ulcerative colitis. And my parents would always say, you need to speak to her. You need to speak to her. And I was like, I'm a scientific guy. I have a science background. Like, show me science and I will understand this. I don't understand this energy voodoo stuff, right? But when this fire happened, I was in a very dark place. And at that point, you become desperate. You'll sort of listen to anything and everybody that's going to tell you that's going to take you out of this, right? So although I was not fully depressed, I can tell you what that feels like because it was a very dark space. And so my brother connected me with her. And, the first time she did what she calls a body code or an emotion code by Dr. Bradley Nelson. And I was like, how do you know that? I haven't shared this with anybody. Like, not even my parents, not even my wife. Like, this is stuff that happened a long time ago in my life. Like, how do you know this? And she's like, I don't. Your body knows everything. Subconsciously, we know everything. All I'm tapping into is that subconscious of yourself. Now, she didn't tell me exactly what happened, but she told me a time period where I knew when that thing had happened. And I knew that that was deep down inside me, that was a blockage that I had not overcome. And so we did this release of emotions, and it's like, you have this big sack of burden behind you, and you do this and it just falls off. I'm like, okay, this is powerful. This is really powerful. This is something that I can scientifically relate to, although it's not science, right? Like you
Right.
feel something different in your body. And so she goes, okay, you know what? Listen, I think what I'd like to do is to attune you for Reiki. You go to bed and let me know what happens in the morning. Now, this is middle of December. It's cold outside. Like, I remember it was like -20 or something like that. I went to bed and I woke up in a sweat at 12 o'clock at night. Now, given the time difference between Tanzania and here, that made sense. And I called her. I said, like, what did you do to me? Like, woke up in a sweat. And she goes, yeah, I could feel it. Your energy is strong. So then I had to, like a science guy, wanted to know more. So over a period of time, I took up courses and became an energy practitioner. And now I have 9 different modalities that I don't even mention all of them, just because I have now created a fusion of my own using body code and emotion code with Dr. Bradley Nelson. But there's access consciousness, there is Reiki, there is energy awakening, restoration, sort of putting all it together. And I work with my clients. I help them not only from that perspective, but I have my business background, and then I have a coaching certificate. So I bring all 3 aspects of it together for you to be able to be aligned and find that entrepreneurship within yourself.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you kind of alluded to it. So what should they expect if they come to see you?
Good question. One of the things that I do first is find out, okay, what is it that they're looking for, right? Most of the time, our misalignments are because of subconsciously there's something in the back of our mind, and it's not aware of us in the front. So when we do the emotion code or the body code, we sort of find that alignment. And so when they work with me, what they'll may or may not realize is that those emotions that they've been holding back are the ones that are creating a blockage. And the way I look at this is, think of it this way, right? We have our blood system that goes through our veins and our arteries and stuff like that. But, according to Chinese traditional medicine, there's also something that's called meridians. They're sort of like the super highways in our body. And when those are blocked, that affects our thought, that affects our action, that affects our speech, right? And we all know what we think is what we say is what we achieve, right? And so when there's a blockage of those thoughts, that negative emotions that are there, because as human beings, we're energy beings. And these blockages are also energy blockages. Now, let me give you a really crude example, and then I'll tell you what my clients feel when they're here with me. When you have a shower and over a period of time, it collects dust and hair and stuff like that, that water starts getting blocked. And so rather than flowing through the pipes, the water comes out. And so what you need to do is to do 2 things, right? One is you put Drano in there and you sort of kill that water, but kill that blockage. But with that, you're also killing the pipes. The other option is to actually go in and take that gunk out, right? And when you do that, in both cases, the water starts flowing. The only challenge is in the first one, we're actually destroying the pipes, or we're proposing a temporary solution. The other one, you go into the root cause, right? Taking those weeds out, right?
Right.
And that's what I do. So when
Good.
a client comes in, we go to that trapped emotion or that trapped blockage that's there, find out the root cause of where it is. And because we're energy beings, energy cannot be created or destroyed, we transmute it. And there's different ways of transmuting that, different modalities that I use to be able to help the client. One of the common phrases that I get when I work with clients is that I feel lighter.
Yeah.
Right?
It's awesome. Awesome. Thank you. That was fantastic. So eloquently said. And the next question, I guess, in this world of like fast food, fast, dinners, fast life, fast everything, how long does it take? Nothing's quick. You can't, I know that people, want to lose weight. They want to lose 100 pounds in overnight, but how long does it take before people, start to see changes, coming to see you?
Yeah. Yeah, and I use the word there's no Nescafe solutions, right? That instant coffee. There is no
Right.
Nescafe solutions.
Absolutely.
Um,
Can't take a pill once, right? So,
exactly. Yeah, and that's the difference between Drano and getting the root cause
right.
out, right?
Perfect
With
example.
you have a headache, you take a Tylenol, you feel the impact right away. Now there are allopathic reasons why people should be going to a doctor or seeing them and do that. This is a long-term process, right?
Right.
And I want to underline here, I'm with every client that I see, I'm not like, hey, let's have a long-term program, because everyone is different. Some will recover faster, some take a while to do, right? But I go by my own experience. With Almas, like I said, the first thing I felt, and these were words that I said, not what she asked me to or alluded to what it would happen to me, is just I just felt lighter,
Right.
right? And I think that's what you start seeing is two things that happen. One, you feel lighter. And going back to my original statement is you need to start working from the inside. And
Right.
because you're working from the inside, your thoughts start changing, your speech starts changing, what you start attracting changes. Because
Right.
unlike what we're told opposites attract, what we think of and what we resonate is what we attract in the universe. So all of a sudden, you start seeing things changing around you, the people that you attract, the places that you end up going to,
Right.
the conversations which you may not have heard previously start making sense to you.
Right.
And that's the kind of changes you start seeing. They're subtle, but if you
Absolutely.
take that opportunity and choice,
Right.
you get closer to what you want.
Absolutely. And I love that what you said. I want to just highlight that for people because it's so important how as you change, the outside changes. It's
Right.
not first. The outside doesn't change. It's
No.
you make those changes. Like I
Right.
remember doing work on myself and like I watched how my sister changed, and my sister did no personal growth. She, even to this day, has done zero personal growth, and she is a different person
Yeah.
because I had changed. And it's not my show, but it's just a perfect example of how these people change in your life. Your spouse will change, your kids change, your job changes, right? So absolutely,
And I'll
really
share a
important.
personal story here,
Yeah,
right? When I
please.
was in that business and I was going through those challenges, I remember my kids not talking to me very often about things. They would go to their mother, right? And I would ask them, and their standard answer to me was, "You're just going to get mad and angry.
Mm,
You're just going to be angry." Now, and that has been so instilled in their subconscious mind that even 5 years later, there are times where they'll say, "But you just get mad." And then they'll step back and they'll go, "Holy, you haven't gotten mad at us since the last 5 years." Right?
love it.
And that awareness that you're talking about happens to them as well, because now
Right.
they're feeling this energy that you're in. And
Right.
sometimes they'll actually correct me now. Hey, Dad, when I'm like, maybe when things are not going as well, and the vicissitudes of life will happen. The ups and downs
Absolutely.
do not
Absolutely.
change, right?
Absolutely.
And it's to keep you grounded.
Right.
Otherwise, you will not be grounded, right? It keeps
Right.
you grounded. That's what you need to do. And so my wife and my kids sometimes when it's like, oh, I've had a really rough day. And my common phrase to them when they're having a difficult time is how wonderful. And they get really upset with it. It's like, how is this wonderful?
Yeah.
But they'll say the same thing back to me.
Yeah.
How wonderful. And then it allows me to reflect back and, okay, what am I learning from this opportunity or this setback that I have? How can I grow from it? And so, that's the whole aspect of coaching, of energy healing, and the business aspect of it. I don't think you can work in isolation. A lot of times people do work just in isolation. You need to put it as a holistic approach.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, I love that because like this is like on YouTube, Jocko. He's like Jocko Willick, I believe is this. He's like ex-military, but he has his phrase is just good. He's like, and so you say great. He's like, oh, we didn't make the cut. Good. You didn't have enough money. Good. And
Yeah.
it was just like, it's a great, like a 2 minute clip. And every time I'm kind of like in that situation where I need like this motivation when, stuff isn't working, I listen to that video. It's just like changes me because it's like,
Yeah.
because it's an opportunity to grow and, to change. And, it's that's awesome. So
Yeah.
moving on. So what separates you or makes you different than, seeing somebody else?
Good question. I think that introduction sort of says it all. It's the combination that I have. It's
Yeah.
very unique, right? I have that science background, but I also have this energy healing that the two separate worlds almost, but I bring them together because when I work with my clients, I help them understand that yes, it may not be scientific, but if you look at it from a physical perspective or physics perspective, we're energy beings. And I can show you how energy works, and science can prove how energy works. And if I can show you that you're an energy being and that every challenge that you're facing internally, whether it be health, whether it be emotional, whether it be, to a certain degree, even mental, right?
Yep.
Because what we think is really important, and we want to change that thought process as well, right? Is all energy based. So how can we transmute that energy, right? Looking at it in a very scientific manner. And then from a business perspective, because I've had my own business for 25 years, a lot of entrepreneurs don't quite understand why they don't have that balance in life, whether it's relationship with their family, their customers, their business has stagnated. There's something that has shifted, and that's why it happens. So I help them understand and clear up those blockages. And it's this approach from a three-pronged stool that I
Right.
bring that provides a lot more stability and strength as opposed to a single uh, approach that most people would take.
Awesome. And so share one of your greatest, success stories with a client, but really not just the story, but like what did you learn from that experience? So then people can see that. We want to see what did you gain from that experience?
Sure. I would say my probably there's a couple that come to mind, right? I'll share a smaller version and then a bigger version so that
Sure.
then they're both really, really important, right? And this one I go back to all the time because I also go back to this phrase that I was exposed to at a young age is, that a shoemaker never has shoes. And as energy practitioners and coaches and stuff like that, we tend to give a lot of direction or help and support to others. We forget to fill our own cup, right? And we
Yes.
need to do that quite often. So this story reminds me of how that is really relevant, right? So I had a client who came in and was struggling financially. And the mother was well-to-do, but had a terrible relationship with the mother, right? So we did some clearings, and of course, the mother's emotions constantly came up, like from a very young age, constantly coming up. I said we need to heal this somehow, right? Above and beyond just releasing trapped emotions and misalignments that are there. So I asked her to do a 30-day journal of gratitude. And I
Mm,
said, it sounds simple, but it's a little more complicated. I want you to write 10 things that you're grateful for your mother, and you can't repeat. So
right.
that's 360
Right.
that you need to do at least. So I gave her 300, 30 days times 10, 300. And she goes, AlKarim, I can't even do one. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll help you with the first 10. And then we go from there. Chris, she came crying to me 10 days after. and gave me a big hug and said, all of a sudden, my mother called me and said, how can I help?
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, amazing.
So, you when you have those trapped emotions of your body, and often as human beings, we have this symbiotic relationship between our thought and our emotion, right? So our emotion lets out certain transmitters in our body to create that feeling that we have, right? Whether it's of anxiety, whether it's of fear, whether it's of joy, whether it's of happiness, whether it's of guilt. It's that emotion that's creating those feelings that we have, right? So that incident that happens is what creates the emotion. And we take that emotion and we create a story around it, which goes to our mind, right? And the brain is not the mind, remember, right? It's going to the mind.
Right.
Now that mind says, interesting. I remember this. That's good. So you subside it after a while because everything is temporary, right?
Right.
But now we want that feeling again because you're like, okay, I'm angry. This anger is subsiding. This is not good. So your message goes from the brain to your body and says, hey, make up another story. So you sort of lift that story a little more. And then now you have that emotion coming back again. And it keeps on happening, this repeated cycle. And then the original story has nothing to do with the actual incident. Right. And so when you release that particular story, one, you get back to the root cause of it, what really happened. And you go, okay, well, you know what? It wasn't as bad as I thought. But once it's released, it's gone. And now you start thinking a little more positive. And again, going back to what we spoke about earlier, is what you say, what you think is what you say is what you attract, and what you attract is what you get. And so now that relationship changes, and that's what will happen with her. That gratitude started changing the view of how she was seeing her mother. That message was now being transmuted through the universe, and the
Right.
mother
Right.
was picking that up and getting to you,
Love
right?
it. I love it.
So it's really, really important. And every time I go into this lull with either a relationship, whether it's at work, whether it's with the community and service that I do, we all run into challenges, right?
Yeah.
But then we go back and we start creating this gratitude, and it changes things, right? So that's sort of that one story that I would say. The other one I'm going to share with you is when I was getting my emotion code certification, I needed to do some cases before I could get certified. And so I put that out in our community and said, hey, you know what? Anybody want to volunteer? So this is lady that came with her husband, I remember very distinctly. And I started the emotion code. Now, remember, I was just starting out. So there was a lack of confidence in myself as well, right? Like I didn't know, you're doing the muscle testing and all of that. And you're like, okay, well, do I have this right? Do I not have this right? What's happening? And so the first one I got was something to do with her father. And she's like, nah, none of this makes sense. It's just, and now she was so stuck in this one emotion that I had sort of alluded to and removed that nothing else makes sense. So, I usually do about 10 to 12, somewhere 10 is an average of how many emotions we release in one particular session. And so I'm going through all of them, and it's like, no, 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 no. And then almost towards the end, she's like in tears. Like, okay, what happened to you? She goes, that first emotion that you did? I go, yeah. She goes, that's the year my father died.
Um,
Hey, interesting. Right? And she goes, I feel so much lighter now. This is great.
uh,
I met her a couple of days later in an event. And she comes up to me and she goes, I have not enjoyed cooking and eating my meals for the last 15 to 20 years, because this is the first time I actually cooked and enjoyed the meal that I had made. And it's all
beautiful.
because of you.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you. So the opposite, when we talked about, how sometimes there are challenges, what are some of your challenges you've had with clients, and what did you learn from those challenges?
Sure. So, you know, our challenges are usually what I call as setbacks, right? It's like, think of any sport. right? Whether it's archery, whether it's, high jumping, whether it's hockey, soccer, you almost have to step back before you can move forward, right? So if a soccer player is taking a shot, a penalty shot, he needs to take his leg back and then hit the ball to go forward. So a lot of times these are the challenges. What ends up happening is that we take those challenges and we keep on moving backwards as opposed to moving forwards, right? We want to create that potential energy and move forward with it, right? And
Right.
create it into kinetic energy, right? And so what I've learned from my clients is every time there's a setback, it's not a setback, but it's an opportunity.
Mm.
It's just how you view that opportunity, right? If you change the way you look at things, then the things you look at change, right? Wayne Dyer says this very clearly every time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that I think has made a fundamental difference in the way I approach challenges, because I constantly get reminded with the clients that I was not the only one that had a huge setback in life, that we all do have those setbacks. The difference is the choice.
Mm.
What choice are you making? Right. And I'm going to underline over here, I have a book that's coming out that's a chapter on an anthology, which is called The Spiritual Survivor. And one of the chapters in there is called Hope is Not a Strategy. And often when we get these setbacks, we create hope as our strategy. I hope things work out. I hope things will be just okay. I hope everything happens. And what we need to do is to change that and not necessarily rely on hope, but to be able to find that root cause of that problem and find a strategy to be able to address that, right? If that root cause is a setback that you had because it was an emotion that you weren't processed properly, or it's a setback because you had made the choice and then stuck to the choice, not knowing that you have another choice. What is it? Right. And then so
Right.
those are the lessons that I think that are really important for us to move forward with.
Gotcha. Okay, great. That's awesome. And if you were to kind of go back into time and little AlKarim, what are three things you'd like him to know about future adult AlKarim?
I love that question. I absolutely love that question, right? So the three things I would say is one, which I sort of, and I think I've answered all of those in a different manner, but I
Yeah,
will bring those
absolutely.
all together, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
One is that you always have a choice. We seem to be told in life that, once you make a choice, stick to it. I tend to believe you have a choice. 1 second later, if you don't like the choice, make another choice. Live in that microsecond moments.
Love
And
it.
so it's not a huge time before you make that other choice, but it's in microseconds. The second one is you're an energy being. You will know when you make that choice, whether it's true or it's false. We're very much like computers where, we're binary. Computer transmission at the base level is done in zeros and ones.
Mm-hmm.
We believe we live in that binary world of our body will know whether it's right or wrong. When you say a word to somebody, you feel that right there, right in that solar plexus.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. Is that right or wrong? Did I say
Yeah.
the good thing or not? You compliment somebody, you never feel bad.
Right.
You scream at somebody, you either feel bad or you feel good right away.
Right.
So that binary is always there for you, right? And the third is
Yes.
gratitude.
Love
It is the best attitude, right? Often we, as human beings, it's so easy to fall into this trap of negativity. And it's a cycle. It's like being a hamster on a wheel, and you build on it and you build on it and you build on it. But the moment you put gratitude, that's gone. I'm going to share a quick story because I always believe that stories last a lot longer than what somebody has said throughout the thing.
I love it.
And so think of it this way. If I were to give you a glass with water and I put 2 tablespoons of salt in it, would you be able to drink that water?
Yeah, I guess sure you could.
2 tablespoons of salt, would you be able to drink
I
that?
mean, yeah, it'd be uncomfortable, but I'm sure
It'd be
you
uncomfortable.
can.
All right. If I took the same amount of salt and I put it in a jug of water, more
Yeah,
likely to drink it?
absolutely. Yeah.
Now, if I took 2 tablespoons of salt and put it into, let's say, a lake that's drinkable water, would you even taste the salt?
No.
No. Salt is the amount of problems or challenges that we have in life. Water is the amount of gratitude that we have. The more gratitude you add,
Mm,
the
love that.
less those challenges will show up in your life.
That was beautiful. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're right. That's amazing. That's a great story. Thank you. And lastly, you kind of talked about it, but just maybe expand so we know, what are you working on right now? What
Right.
people
Great.
should know.
I am actually working on a couple of things. So one is a chapter that's coming out in this anthology, which is called The Spiritual Fitness Survivor. A friend of mine in the US is publishing. It's going to be a great book. Love for you guys to buy it because there's 10 other authors in there, all authors that I know and respect and trust and love. So my chapter is called Hope is Not a Strategy. It's the story of my life in terms of how hope masked my life for the longest time. And in this world where we have a lack of empathy, we use hope for masking a lot of our emotions and stuff like that, and how one should not be using hope as a strategy. The second one is a book that's going to be called one of two titles. I'm finalizing on it, but the whole concept of that book is going to be called Sifr. It's Sifr is an Arabic word that means zero, and
Okay.
why zero is everything. And I'll leave it at that because that book is in 50% done. So once it's done, I will definitely put
All
it out
right.
there for
That's
everybody. But
excellent.
that's the second project that I'm working on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This was full of nuggets. So thank you.
Okay. Thank
How
you for having
can
me.
we support you? Like maybe what's one way that people should reach out to you, or maybe two? What do you think?
Sure. So I have a website called setback-to-triumph.com. So setback to triumph. So it's setback and then dash number two dash triumph.com. That's there's a free uh, blind spot assessment that you can take on there. It will give you an idea of where you sit in your blind spots and how you can look at your blind spots. And once you figure those out and what your challenges are and stuff like that, I'd love to be able to connect with you. I do provide a free half an hour session to find out if there's an opportunity for us to work together. You can book it right on the site for a calendar, but you can also reach me directly. I'll leave you my number. It's 416-786-5173.
Awesome. That was great. And we'll have all that below, obviously, in the show notes. So thank you, AlKarim. This has been fantastic. And
Thank you for having me.
yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much.